Today, we are pleased to have with us Tina Pruitt. She, like the other moms that we have interviewed, lost a son tragically to a fentanyl poisoning. So, Tina, if you would please share your story of your beautiful son, Logan.
Okay. First of all, thank you, Mary, for having me on here to talk about my child's story. Logan's story was a little bit different in the fact that Logan did not struggle with SUD, which is substance use disorder. He did not have a history of drug use. He'd never got into trouble with the law. We never had problems with him at home. So that's basically how it was a little bit different than some, but uh, it doesn't only affect, like, it's affecting those with substance use disorder and those without. So his story is the one without. Um, we can start from the time he was born, and Logan was born on July 15th of 1998, and he was 11 pounds, 23 and a half inches long. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, he was a big baby, but I had three other ones naturally, but I could not have him natural. So uh, at age 15, he wore a size 15 shoe, and he was tall and thin, and his heart was probably just as big. And I would say that's probably where he got his nickname from. His nickname was Gentle Giant.
That's
And
precious.
yeah, well, he had a couple nicknames, but one was Logie Bear and the other one's Gentle Giant. And he was our peacemaker. So um, Logan is the youngest of four children, um, born to a very large family. He's got three other siblings in the family, but in my family, like everybody, like my sister and her children, like we were all just one big family. So Logan was born to a large, loving family, and uh, we took him to church. We did church all together, like even my siblings and their families. Like we all did church together too. That was one of our big things as a family. Uh, we went Sunday mornings, Sunday night, Wednesday nights, and on Wednesday night we had a jam program, Jesus and Me, and I taught the teenage girls class, and Logan then went to the jam program at that time. He and I'm going to explain a little bit about how he was as a child and how he was even an adult. But uh, when they first start jam, they would go in and they would do a jam song, and then they would let the kids come forward and do any kind of prayer or whatever they wanted to do. But our church took the jam children, all the kids. They went around town and picked them up, for jam. But then once a year, we took them to the children's home, and that affected Logan. Like he was just felt so sorry for those children, and that's how, like, he was always that way. But he took his piggy bank one Wednesday evening and took the whole thing. Like he had saved it for a long time, but he hustled that thing up there and he just said, "I want to give all my piggy bank stuff to the children, because they don't have a mom and dad." So he
Wow.
was he was just very much like that.
How old was he when he did that?
He was probably 5 or 6.
That is so precious.
Yeah, and that's just who he was, and you'll hear a little bit more here, but that's how he was from, I think, birth. Um, I was a stay-at-home mom, and so I feel fortunate enough to have been there, getting them ready for school and being at home when they got home from school, and I just very fortunate that we didn't have to leave our kids, with either a daycare or anyone else as far as that goes. So we very hands-on parents. He was in Boy Scouts and wrestling, soccer, like anything. He was in baseball, whatever it was that he was in. We were all there. We were there for the practices. We were there for the games. Like it was a family ordeal for any of the kids. And I remember one year I had all 4 kids and something, so it was going from one ball field to the next and back and forth. But it was nice to have the rest of the family there, because even if I wasn't there, somebody else was. So that's how we did things. And we traveled with our kids. We went on vacations. Like I said, we're very hands-on. We're very active with our kids. Made very good memories doing that. We were a tightly knitted family. Logan was very much loved, and he knew he was loved. And I was the mom that waited to go to college. I wanted to make sure they were all at least in school all day long. So times before bed, I was the mom that taught them how to pray, made them hold hands while we prayed. And they now have good memories about that. They would even kind of joke around at the time, but it was a good time, good memories. And yeah, I'm the one that taught them, of course, how to love the Lord. I was also the mom that had the rules and made them follow them. So
good for you.
Oh yes. Logan grew up with a best friend. Brandon was his name, and they did a lot of things together. They did the county fairs, the demolition derby together, and he even traveled with their family, and vice versa, because we all knew each other. It's from a small town, so they grew up together. And from the get-go, Logan was a very emotional child. So I think that he was empathetic, but I think he was more of an empath, where he would actually literally take on other people's feelings and their emotions. And he was just a very emotional child. And so we knew, like, from the get-go that, like, if he needed to be corrected, it was a very soft tone, soft correcting. And so that just kind of paints the picture of how he was. He was very sensitive, very trusting, to the point where I was always worried about, like, okay, we have to watch him because he trusts everybody. Like there nobody was bad, and everybody was good, and so he was a little bit too trusting, I think. But he was definitely our peacemaker. He just was kind to everyone. He loved animals too. I think he let every animal that he had out of the cage, like, run. that was probably not a good thing, but he let his hamsters out. He let his rabbits out. He let his lizard out. Like, he just let everything go. And that was his mind thought, was just go, run where you can. Everyone that knew Logan just absolutely loved him. I mean, from the time he was little till the day he died, they loved him. His personality, his laughter, his love for people, his respect for people, people flocked to him. And he was that kid. Everybody loved to be around him. And I want to say Logan probably never had a bad word to say about anybody. Like, if somebody, like one of his friends, were talking about somebody else, and he would be the one that, oh, it's not that bad, and things will get better. He was definitely our little peacemaker too. So when he got to the point of being in junior high, his father and I decided to divorce. And that was not, we made that, his father and I still, regardless of what we were going through, our children were number one, our main priority, and that didn't change. And so it was a very, you want to say, peaceful divorce. It was as peaceful, I think, as I've ever seen one. Mm-hmm. So we were...
Amicable probably is a good word for that.
Absolutely, yes. And so it made it just easier on everyone. And we didn't want it to be hard. It was hard enough, but we didn't want it to be hard on the kids.
Right.
So Logan was allowed to come and go as he pleased. He actually moved with me I got a job interview 30 minutes from our hometown, and I decided to take it. And he didn't want his mama to be alone. So he decided he was moving with me. His dad was fine because my son, who is 3 years older than him, was in high school. So he was staying with his dad, and it was so close anyway. We were pretty close in proximity. So he ended up coming with me, and we enrolled him in a very good school, a very good part of the city, and he easily made good friends again. Like he's so likable. And one of his friends actually was a very good pianist, and he was always talking about his friend because he was so proud of him for the way he played, and he did play well. He was surrounded, I guess, to say by good people, good people in his life, people that uh, lived well. Not, and I don't mean well as far as financial things, but rather they also attended church and just good, all good, good people.
Good role models.
Yes, good role models. That's a better way to put it. And let's see here, a few things with him. And he had met. That's when we were up in Fort Wayne. He had met a friend who became very close to. His name was Sammy. They hung out. They got very close, and then the other friend from Ohio then came together, and they were all together, so they were all close. They did skateboarding, playing games, just hanging out like normal teenagers. And I always made it my point to get to know like any of his friends' parents, and most of the time had the kids come to my house because I'm a little worrywart mom, so I always had them come to my house, so I knew what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And he graduated. Then we end up. I got offered, and this is not unusual, but I got offered another really good job back in my hometown, and decided to go ahead and take it because it was in surgery, which I loved. So that's been most of my career. So I went ahead and accepted that. I talked to Logan. He was, yeah, let's move back. It's okay. We're only 30 minutes from everybody. And so that's the decision that we made together. He kept in contact with his friends in up there in Indiana. He had gotten a job back in our hometown at one of the factories. He was saving money. He was thinking more about what he wanted to do as far as college or even a trade school or something. He, had the right mindset. Oh, then in January of 2020, he got a call from Sammy's parents, and they told him that Sammy had died by suicide. And that was very hard for Logan. He took it really hard. And at one point he came to us, it was probably about 8.5 months into it that I realized, okay, he's not doing well with this. And so he came to my husband and I, and knowing that, we were in the medical field, my husband's a surgeon, that we could actually reach out to somebody pretty quick. But he sat and talked to us for like 2.5 hours and just cried his eyes out. He was so devastated. And he was
being the empathetic person he was, that all fits perfectly together.
absolutely.
So I'm glad you shared that part of his early childhood, because it makes the story so much more complete.
Yes. And also when, with him being like when he was really young, you couldn't even say just even a little, raise your voice a little bit. He was in tears, and that's just who he was. So I know that's why, again, like you said, why he took this so hard. He was not processing it at all. And when he came to us, he told us that he had not slept for 3 days, and you could see it. I mean, swollen eyes, cried, I don't know for how long, but when he came to us, we knew like, okay, well, you need to get in to talk to somebody, because this is, it's not going well for you, and we'll be there, we'll be there with you all the way. And then it was 3 days later that I got the call that no mother wants.
And who was the call from?
It was from Logan's biological father, and we'd always kept in contact, about everything, whether it was, Logan, had something going on in school, or we always kept in contact about everything. So he had called me, and I was doing an interview with a lady that was interviewing to clean my house, and thank goodness she was here, because I got the call that it's Logan. They don't think he's breathing. The EMS is here, and they think he's dead.
Did they use Narcan?
I don't know. I have been trying to find that out. And they told me, his mother, that I would have to get a court order to get that information.
Is that because he was an adult?
I think maybe, but he wasn't married. He didn't have any children. And so that's been something else that we're working on. Yeah. So by the time I made it to the hospital, I was kept out for a few minutes, and I had worked in the ER there for a while with those women. And being kept out for a few minutes, I knew that my worst nightmare had become a reality. So when they finally let me in, they said, "Tina, we tried. We did everything we could. We worked on him for 40 minutes. And usually in the ER, if it's 20 minutes, it's pretty much called." So I knew. I knew. And then they routed me to another room where my daughter was already at. And probably the hardest thing.
Do you think that they worked on him for that extended period of time because they knew your family?
They did. I mean, they knew us, but I don't know. I don't know what the reason was, or maybe they didn't give me the details of maybe they got his heart started again, and maybe it stopped, and that could have been just knowing, myself working there in the ER, being an ER nurse. I know if they were trying to get him back and he was trying to come back or whatever, and then it just kept going back and forth, that could have been the reason as well.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And just that news, just devastating news that you get, like you have them 1 minute and the next minute they're gone, and it's devastating to say the least.
So did you get the phone call like early morning?
It was 11 to like 10 after 11. You don't forget these things.
No.
So the girl that was with me, she drove me to the hospital, and then that's what I run into. And my daughter and I, it was devastating, and you just it's a screaming cry that you'll never forget because it's that devastating. And then with each member that comes in and finds out the news again and again and again, it just keeps happening. So, and that's I guess they routed us to his bedside, and for 5.5 hours we just sat next to him holding his hand, and I guess trying to take it in. Little did we know what was actually coming. I think you go into shock right away, and little do you realize what's actually coming, and it's I guess I want to say it's a forever nightmare to explain it.
I don't even know how to comment on that. I've not been through that, so I'm not even going to try and comment. But the level and the depth of the pain is something that I don't think anyone can fathom.
You can't. I try to explain that like to a mother that's never had a child. There's no way you can know what that's like until you have a baby. You can never know the depth of grief that you go into and stay into, and it completely changes your life.
You don't expect to bury your child. You sort of expect to bury parents and maybe siblings sometimes, but never a child.
Never a child. And especially as senseless as this is. I mean, it would be bad no matter what. But this is a little different. And when it's like that quick, you don't get goodbyes as you would. I do know a mother who she buried her daughter from stomach cancer, and 30 days later, she lost her son to fentanyl. And she said the difference is like night and day. And they're both bad, but the one she got to sit with for months, and they knew, and she could say her goodbyes, and yeah. So it's definitely different.
So, what do you know about how he came to have the fentanyl in his possession? How did he get that?
I think with him waiting for his appointment, like he was not sleeping, and I think somebody he knew, because he trusted everybody, but he knew a lot of people. I think somebody gave him a pill that looked like a safe pharmaceutical pill, which that's what is happening.
Mhm.
They pill press them, and they look like a safe pharmaceutical pill. It was a Xanax, which his toxicology came back that was a very little bit of Xanax, and the rest was fentanyl.
Do you know approximately how much fentanyl was in the pill?
7.4 milligrams, and 2 milligrams is enough to kill someone.
Okay, so that's enough to kill almost 4 people.
Yes. Yes. And right now we have a couple leads that we're hoping, and I'm working with a DEA agent and a man unit agent as well. And I think they're kind of looking at the same person that I am. And so doing a lot of praying. And God has never left my side. And I've never blamed him for any of this. It's part of life, I guess, and it shouldn't be. And I think, I think God loves my child as much as I do, if not more. And so I've never had that feeling of blaming God for anything.
So, if you had to give some action steps to our listeners, what would that be?
Well, I want to first say, before that, I want to say there's a lot of stigma around this, which is not helping any of the situation.
It's true.
This affects all walks of life, from the poor to the middle class to the wealthy. It affects all people, whether they struggle with substance use disorder or they do not. And so one time they put on Logan's death certificate that the cause of death was fentanyl and the manner was overdose. And I disagree. It was not an overdose. It was a poisoning. When you take one pill, you do not, even in the medical field, it's impossible. You do not take one pill and die from one pill and it be an overdose.
Well, in the medical world, when you are given a prescription, there's a prescribed dosage.
There's a prescribed dosage. That's right.
And how often you're to take it. And then you also can look online and see that as well. They don't have that for fentanyl because it doesn't exist.
It's not a safe dose. I gave fentanyl in the medical form of fentanyl to patients when they came out, and we didn't leave their side, even with that. So what they have is not the same thing on the streets. It's illicit fentanyl, and it's mixed the wrong way. And they're mixing this medication and these pills in vats, so they're never going to get. You can get the chocolate chip effect, where, and this is for the public as well, where one side of a pill may have a bunch of fentanyl and the other side have none. So I would like to, just tell people, really hone in on your children and know what's going on, even though I was that mother. who knew everything, all of my children, and they would tell you, like, I knew everything that was going on with them. And even though, like, Logan had just turned 22, and he was a little bit of a private, kind of quiet person as he got a little bit older, but, he did finally come to us, and I still had my eyes set on him. I never thought in a million years that he would just, trust somebody enough, and even though I feel like I maybe should have, but he trusted somebody enough, that's okay. Yes, it looks like a safe pharmaceutical pill, so I'm good to go. Not so.
Well, one of the things that I have said in pretty much every one of these interviews is the fact that fentanyl is a nonpartisan and equal opportunity killer. It is no respecter of persons. It doesn't matter where you live, what you do. It does not matter. And Logan is a classic example of that.
Absolutely. During his, right during the time he passed, there were 7 in the area of our small town.
Is there any way to, well, it's probably, maybe it's not something for you to know, but is there a way to trace back and know if there was a common drug dealer that was involved in those?
Yes, we're working on that.
Okay,
Yes.
good for you.
So I have contacted and working with the man unit, the leader of the man unit. I'm not sure exactly what her title is, but we have connected already 2 of those deaths to the same person who is currently incarcerated, and this mama is not done.
Good for you. There's nobody that's going to fight any harder on planet Earth than a mama bear.
That's right.
When one of her cubs is injured or deceased.
And that's right. You say that, and it's very accurate. It is an injury to the entire family, an injury that we will never get over. And this is happening in our country at the rate of 1 every 5 minutes. 1 every 5 minutes.
I'm going to go out on a limb and ask you a question. Do you feel that our government is complicit in turning a blind eye to this?
Oh, yeah, they do. Absolutely, they do. For the longest time, we couldn't get even the fentanyl word out of our current administration. Wouldn't even say it. I think it's even become worse since the borders have been open. Nobody's looking at that. It's open and it's free for all. Come on in, bring your drugs, and there's so much more to that as well. But yes, it's gotten worse, and we've got to stop it. It is this problem, even if you haven't lost a child, is your problem too if you live in this country.
Right.
Eventually you will know somebody very close to you that has passed, if you haven't yet.
All of what you just said is precisely why we launched this mini-series this week, because we were having an event on Sunday, April the 14th, here in Wimberley, Texas. And we will have Jason Jones speaking on behalf of Border 911. And we will have Anthony Hippolito, he's our local Hays County Sheriff's outreach officer, will be speaking on fentanyl. And the two are undeniably tied together.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I want to say, I think that we, need to have it mandated in our schools for it to be taught, because it's the #1 killer in America right now, from ages 18 to 45, and they're looking to soon make that ages 14 to 45. So that should be mandatory.
It's incredible that as a parent of a 14-year-old child, you have to worry about that, but that's the reality of our world today.
That absolutely. There's other things. I believe that we should label the cartels as terrorists, and we should label fentanyl as weapons of mass destruction. Because
both of those make total common sense, but that's part of the problem, is that common sense, unfortunately, does not seem to play well with our government.
That's right.
So, well, those are two great action items. Is there anything else you would like to add as we close?
Um, I just, yeah, in 5 years, and this is why it's America's problem, not just the people who've lost a child, but in 5 years, we may not have a military. This is wiping out a whole generation, and it's going down to the next generation. What's it going to be like?
That's a valid point. Nobody else so far has mentioned that, but that is an absolute spot on observation, and you're right.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, so I'm going to go one step further. Who do you think might be complicit in that other than our government? Who would stand to gain from that?
Well, to gain from,
Not having a military in America.
oh, yeah, China?
Yeah, thank you. I didn't want to speak for you, but that's where I was
Oh, yeah,
headed. So,
yeah.
yeah.
China, drug cartels, making a ton of money each and every day.
Yeah.
No regards to human life. Yeah. Follow the money.
Exactly. Well, Tina, you have provided some great insight today in addition to sharing your tragedy. I thank you for that. Thank you for being on with us. And we look forward to connecting with you again soon.
Thank you, Mary, for having me.
It was our pleasure. Have a blessed rest of your day.
Thank you. You as well.
Thank you.